Look, this is a really exciting day. We're here to introduce the new coach of the LA Chargers and really welcome to the Charger family, Brandon Staley, his wife, Amy, their three boys, Colin, Will, and Grant. Before we get to coach, I thought I'd talk a little bit about, our process and what led us to Coach Staley. When we began this process, the first thing we did internally here was to sit down and have, great detailed discussion on, what is it that we want in a new head coach? What are the traits that we're looking for? And it started with a super high level, two buckets of, we want leadership and knowledge of the game. Okay. But then what we did was we spent a lot more time at a more granular level discussing, okay, well, what makes up a great leader? What are the traits we're looking for? And, there were some things that were really important to us along those lines, such as, authenticity, honesty, ability to communicate, and probably most importantly, a genuine ability to really connect with the players and really with everybody in the building. And then when you talk about knowledge of the game, we're looking for someone who can bring, a true strategic expertise. Okay. And that can look like a bunch of different things. So there's no one specific picture of what that looks like. Another thing I want to mention is it was really important to us to find the best head coach for this team. Okay. We weren't out to find the best coordinator. We wanted someone who really had a clear vision for all three phases of the game, someone who could implement a true vertical alignment in all three phases of the game. Okay. And it was a really thorough process. We cast a really wide net. We considered all different types of resumes and backgrounds for this job: offensive side, defensive side, pro coaches, college coaches, retired coaches, coordinators, position coaches. I mean, we really wanted to come into this thing with an open mind. And we had no bias going in. There were no favorites going in. Everyone started off on an equal playing field. It was a very strong list of candidates. I want to just take a second and thank everyone who took the time to interview with us, because it was a really impressive group. And it was hard to even come up with a short list. And once we did come up with a short list, our short list was longer than it had ever been. So we began the interview process, and once we started talking with Coach Staley, it became really clear really quickly that he possesses all the traits we're looking for. And I mean, he really blew us away in the interview. And then beyond the interview, another important part of the process for us was the reference work we did, and talking with people who'd been with Coach Staley in the building, hearing what former players had to say about him. And I think there were some really strong reoccurring themes that kept coming up when people would talk about Coach Staley. And, one was intelligence. And the other one and probably most importantly, was connection, and his ability to connect with people, his ability to connect with players. And we feel those traits are just paramount for this job. I will say this about Coach Staley: this man loves football. He is a very driven individual. He has a very growth-oriented mindset. He's incredibly passionate about teaching. He's passionate about coaching, and it's literally in his blood. Coach Staley, he's the son of a teacher. He's the son of a coach. One of my favorite parts of the first time we sat down with Coach Staley, he says, people often ask me what coaching tree I consider myself part of. This is a guy who's coached with some great minds in football, right? He's coached with Vic Fangio. He's coached with Sean McVay. He says people, when they ask him, what coaching tree do you consider yourself a part of? He tells them, I'm part of the Bruce and Linda Staley coaching tree. That's my coaching tree. And I think that says a lot about Brandon. It says a lot about, his character, his values, and who he is. His story is well documented about some of the adversities that he's faced in his life. Dealing with cancer, both at a personal level, family level. And we talked at length about a lot of those adversities that he faced. And he told us about how, dealing with a lot of these challenges have really made him stronger and helped shape who he is. And I think that's really admirable. So the leadership part, that jumped out right away. And then again, that other part I mentioned, right? That knowledge of the game, that strategic expertise. We spent a lot of time with Brandon talking about offense, defense, special teams, his vision, his plan. And, just like you'd expect from someone who just coordinated the number one defense in the NFL, he had a great plan and vision for his defense and what he's going to bring here. And it was really exciting. It is very exciting. We feel very strongly he's going to put our players in the best positions to succeed. But probably equally exciting, maybe even more impressive, was when we went over his plan for the offensive side of the ball. And he shared his vision. He shared a lot of the details about what he wants to do here. And, talking to him about the offense, I'm not exaggerating when I say there were times I totally forgot that we were talking to a defensive coach. I thought we were talking to an offensive coach half the time. And I think he could tell that we were a little bit kind of like, wow, and he had to remind us, guys, I did play quarterback, don't forget. And, he kind of said it tongue in cheek, but I will say, I think that there's merit in the fact that having played quarterback probably does help him a little bit and kind of maybe see things through a different lens. Coach Staley's also coached special teams in his past. So he has a very well-rounded background. It's going to really serve him well here. I think it's going to put him in a position to lead this team in all three phases, which is what we want. So needless to say, look, we couldn't be more excited about this hire. So with that, I'm very proud to introduce the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Staley.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, guys. This is so exciting. Really appreciate everyone being here. This is what makes the NFL so amazing, is all the people that are interested in it and that do it for a living. And I'm just so excited to be here. It's an exciting day, as John said. It's an exciting day. It's a special day. For me and my family, it's a dream come true. And for dreams to come true, there are so many people to thank. There's so many people whose love, support, and unwavering belief have helped us earn an opportunity as special as this one. We'd first like to thank the Spanos family, Dean and Susie, John and Jody, AG and Camry, our general manager, Tom Telesco, and Lara, Ed and Jane McGuire. What was so impressive to my family and I was the leadership here with the Los Angeles Chargers. The love of this team, our players, and our fans means so much to us. To me, the best businesses are personal. And right now, the Los Angeles Chargers is a family business. And we are forever grateful to represent the Spanos family and the Los Angeles Chargers. We'd also like to thank the Rams for an incredible year this past season. Stan and Josh Kroenke, Kevin Demoff, Les Snead, Reggie Scott. These people mean so much to us. I'd like to take a moment and extend a special thanks to Sean McVay. Sean gave me an opportunity of a lifetime a year ago. His unwavering belief and support for me this entire season, I will always be grateful for you, Sean. You gave me so much. My family and I love you like a brother, and we are so excited for you and Veronica. It's a sacred mantle, for someone to call you coach. It's something that you guys are going to hear me say a lot. It's a sacred mantle for somebody to call you coach. And they don't call you coach without players. And there are so many players to thank who have had such an impactful part of my journey as a coach. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Khalil Mack. A lot of you guys know these players, but there are others that you may not know a lot about. Leonard Floyd, John Johnson, Sam Acho, Brody Zangaro, Chris Rizzo, Javon Dawson, Frank Pines. These are players that you may not know that have had such a special impact on my journey. And there are so many others. It's the relationships with men like this that last a lifetime. And to all the players that we've had the good fortune to coach, thank you. Now I want to talk about family. The Staley family, as John told you, what I told them in that interview, I meant. I am from the Bruce and Linda Staley coaching tree. And my parents are my heroes. My dad, Bruce, my mom, Linda, they've taught me everything that I know about what it is to be a man and a leader. As some of you know, my mom passed away from cancer in 2004. She's the most graceful, loving, strongest person I know. I started drinking coffee in the first grade and reading the sports page because I wanted to be like my dad. And I'm a son of a teacher and a coach, like John mentioned. And I grew up and saw the impact that you can have when you listen and invest in people. And it has never left me. I'd also like to thank my twin brother, Jason, his wife, Britt, our two nieces, Caroline and Claire, and my brother, Michael. You all are my best friends. And thank you for always pushing and believing me. To my wife, Amy, the most amazing person that I've ever met. Not a day goes by that I'm not in awe of the mother, teacher, daughter, and friend that you are. We are a team. And I love you so much. To my three boys, Colin, Grant, and Will. We got Grant, man, who he competed really hard this morning, guys, and he's taking a nap right now. But you'll get to meet them here in a second. Mommy and Daddy love you so much, and you make us so proud. It's so exciting to be Chargers. So now, what's the vision for the Los Angeles Chargers? I know that's why a lot of you guys are here. What's the vision for this team, and how are we going to get there? Well, it's simple. The foundation for our team will start with relationships. That will be number one. And the second thing will be competition. Players, coaches, staff, fans, together, we can create something truly special. Each and every day, the Chargers need to be on a mission to create something challenging, competitive, impactful, where people within our team can become their best. And I want to finish by talking to our players in the present, our players from the past, our fans, the city of Los Angeles. You are what makes this team so special. And we're going to do everything we can moving forward to make you proud. It's an honor to represent you. Bolt up. My family and I are so excited to be here.
All right. Thanks for that, Brandon. I think we can get ready to jump into the question and answer portion of this. I'll have Tom. We have Tom Telesco joining us now as well. So he's in here on Zoom with us. So if you have any questions, just please direct who the question is for. But Tom, John, and Brandon are all available here. So we'll start things off. Fernando Ramirez.
Hey, Brandon, congratulations. Can you just talk about what led up to the moment of you being hired, going from being interviewing the first time to then the second time with the Chargers?
Yeah, Fernando, I thought I had a really good first interview, a really good first meeting with the family, Tom, Ed. I felt like there was, people use that word connection, but I felt like there was a chemistry between us. I felt like there was an alignment kind of in what I brought to the table and their vision for the team. And I felt like it just felt like it could be a good fit. But you knew that there was more work to be done, and we were still in the thick of the playoffs, trying to make a run at a Super Bowl. So I knew that there was more work to be done, but I was excited about a second meeting. And then, after we had the tough loss last week, and I was able to come here down to, the Chargers facility and meet them in person, because as you guys all know, the first time we met was like this on Zoom. And I think it's very difficult to sort of capture that feeling for one another, through the computer screen. Although we've all gotten pretty good at it this year, but when we finally met in person, I think that we had an alignment of where, we wanted this team to go. And I thought was really, special for me was that this is a family, the Spanos family, like this is their life's work, and to me, my family and I, that's the type of opportunity that we were looking for, where we could partner up with people that represent us and that we fit so well with. And I thought that, there was a good chance going into it, that it could be a fit, and that day just solidified the way we felt.
And then Brandon, I forgot to say congratulations, by the way. Congratulations. Everybody, this is a question on everybody's mind. When we asked Tom what he was looking for in a head coach, he said if he brought in a defensive-minded coach, it would be, what's the plan for Justin Herbert? So I ask you, what is your plan for Justin Herbert in the offense moving forward?
Yeah, Fernando, I think that's what I was so excited about to convey, in this process was my offensive vision, because I do consider myself an offensive coach. And I think what's helped me so much on the defensive side of the ball is my offensive background. I've been fortunate to have some great teachers, Fernando, that have taught me a lot in offensive football. And, my defensive thinking has been shaped by a lot of those people. And so I think when it comes to Justin, number one, just observing and watching him from afar, I think you guys are probably all aware of the excitement about this guy and what he earned in his first year. And I think, being able to play as well as he did, through a global pandemic with no off season, no training camp, and then for him to just, emerge, really a week before the season and take this league on the way he did, I think it just shows you what his makeup is. And I think beyond his obvious physical talents, it's just what he's made of. And I think that my vision for the offense really fit Justin and what he can do well and where we want to take it and how we want to play and feature in his style of play, and not being able to impose a system on him is creating the system for Justin, and uniquely shaping it to his skill set, because he is unlike anybody in the NFL. He's his own person. And I think that my background as a player, my background as a defensive coach, I think that we'll be able to shape that, all right, in a really special way. And I think that, that was something that, Fernando, that I was so excited to convey in the interview, and the specifics of that were a real highlight for me, and being able to talk to these guys.
And then last one for me. What did they let you know during the second interview that they wanted you to be their head coach, or did you was the meeting done and then later they told you that they extended the offer to you?
I think after we met, we had a really thorough interview, and then later after that interview, they extended me the offer.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Joe Reedy.
Brandon, congrats on the being named. When you were game planning against Heidelberg 4 or 5 years ago, did you ever imagine that in this amount of time you'd become a head coach?
Joe, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. I know that, but every day that I was coaching at John Carroll, James Madison, Hutchinson Junior College, all those experiences, I was envisioning going against Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. And I was preparing, and I felt like I had a double education going. We were competing in college to win every single game, but in my heart, and, after I was done preparing for a college game, I was studying the NFL and trying to become as good as I could be to compete in this league, because that was always a dream of mine. And I think that those experiences have uniquely shaped me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I feel like they've uniquely prepared me for this opportunity. And I think that, back then, if you talk to the people that were with me, that I either worked with or coached coached against, I would hope that they would say that they thought this was possible.
And then just as far as your staff, I know a lot of names have been bandied about the last couple weeks. How close are you as far as coordinators, or just getting your assistants in?
I think John and Tom are, we'll both talk about it. We really believe in going through a process here, Joe. And I think that is what the NFL is doing such a good job of, in this cycle, is being, we're going through a really thorough process to get the best coaches that we can for the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think what makes the NFL so special is how competitive it is, especially for coaches. And I think that, in due time, you guys will see that this staff will be one of the elite staffs in the NFL. And we're excited to go through that process together, for them to meet our ownership, our leadership, and really try and assemble a really unique group.
And then for Tom, just what was the interview process with Brandon like? I know some candidates come in and freestyle it, others come in with giant binders. Just what was Brandon's interview process like?
The way we looked at it was kind of like, I guess, 3 components to the interview process. The first component would be the product on the field. Essentially, how do the players perform for that coach? So that's kind of one part of the process. The second part is the interview process. What's your plan and how you're going to implement that plan? And then the third one, and John alluded to this before, was kind of the vetting process, trying to get some objective information from people who have been around that coach. And that's easier said than done sometimes, because there's a lot of agendas out there. So you have to try and find really fair and balanced, objective opinions. And it's the same thing in the draft process when you're scouting players. And with Brandon, what you saw in the field this year with the Rams kind of speaks for itself. And Brandon came up under Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive minds this league has seen in the last 20 years. I've worked with Vic twice, once with the Panthers, once with the Colts. And that's kind of been how Brandon's kind of come up in this league. So you saw the product on the field. You saw how he used the pieces he had with the Rams, both with his fronts, with his coverages, and how he put a lot of stress on offensive teams. So that was great. And then, he was very clear and concise with the plan he had for us. There were no buzzwords, no platitudes. It was just very to the point. A lot of substance to his answers. So that really stood out. And then all the vetting that we did and the people we talked to, everything came back, collaborated what we had heard. So he kind of hit all those 3 points, hit them all very well. And I think he's gonna be a great fit for us.
Okay, thanks.
Nick Hamilton.
Hey, Coach Staley, congratulations on the job.
Thanks, Nick.
Wanted to ask you, you spoke earlier about just the relationship that you had with your previous players like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and various guys. How do you plan on continuing to establish the relationships with the Chargers players and cultivating those relationships over the course of various seasons and off season?
Well, Nick, it's such great points. I've already started that process. My kids and my wife met Derwin James this morning. Got to FaceTime, him, FaceTime Justin Herbert, talk to Joey Bosa. I can go down the list, talk to Keenan Allen. I mean, Brian Balaga, Austin Eckler. I could keep going. Since I've gotten hired, I've been on a mission to talk to as many guys as I can. I've texted a lot of them, and fellas, if I haven't got you yet, I will. And the other thing that I wanted to do is reach out to a lot of the players from the past that have made this team so special. I've been able to link up with LT, talk to Sean Merriman, talk to Dan Fouts, reached out to several others. And I think that, you have to mean what you say, in this league. You have to, and, I talk about relationships and I talk about competition. And since I was hired, that's what I've tried to embody, and I think that the players are going to be at the center of everything that we do in this building. And the relationships with those players are everything. And they will be the most important factor in our success. And I think those guys that you mentioned from my past, Jalen, AD, Khalil, Vaughn, Bradley, whomever, all my players at Carroll and all the way back, I would not be here if it weren't for them. And, it's just incredibly special to me. And I think that that's what I'm most excited to do is meet our guys.
And one thing also, now that you're a head coach, I wanted to get your thoughts on the NFL has basically been going through a lot of different changes in the last couple of years. But the one problem that continues to persist is a lack of opportunities for Black and minority coaches, whether they be head coaches or coordinators. What do you feel a responsibility, or would you feel like you'd be able to use your voice in order to be able to continue to bring awareness to this problem that continues to persist in the National Football League?
Yeah, Nick, everything that you're saying is such a big deal. It's such a, we have such a unique opportunity in front of us. I think that the awareness and the overall mission statement of the NFL has changed significantly, I would say, in the last year or so. And I think that, I can speak, individually on, where I just came from. The guys that I was directly with on my defensive staff, I had 4 African-American coaches on my staff that are all superstars: Eric Henderson, EJ Evero, Aubrey Pleasant, Jonathan Cooley. Those guys are special. I've worked with so many others in the past that I could, name. And, I think Nick, the biggest thing that needs to happen is people need to have a platform for these guys to be able to express themselves to the world, to the NFL. And I think that there's been a movement to make that happen. But all you can do, Nick, is live the mission. And for someone like myself that is so fortunate to be here, all I can do moving forward, all right, is do my best to make sure that everybody on this call, everybody that's in the NFL knows that that's a big part of our mission statement, and that the NFL, the only way it's going to be as good as it can be, right, is if we really make progress on this issue. And, I think that you'll be able to see that, Nick, within our coaching staff moving forward.
And lastly, for me, you talked about just ingratiating yourself into the family with the Spanos family and the Chargers family and what have you. But what are some of the specifics that really stood out to you about taking this head coaching job, especially with this particular franchise?
Yeah, I think going back to the beginning, I think, talking to Dean Spanos, specifically, and going back to his father and, just getting I'm a big fan of history and I love the game. And I think when you go all the way back, I was fortunate to work for a team, in Chicago. It's a big family, in the Denver Broncos with the Bolin family, with Pat, so I think, the best businesses are personal. And I think that when, the leadership of the family is represented within the team, I think that that's really unique. And I think their history, their context, their vision for this new opportunity, being here in LA, I just couldn't be more excited. And there's just such an investment, in the success of this team. And you can see it. And all you have to do is walk up the hall, and it's right there in front of you. Welcome to the family. And I don't think that, that could be represented any better than that.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gilbert Manzano.
Hey, Brandon, nice to meet you.
Hi, Gilbert.
Brandon, just curious, when you went to the second meeting with the Chargers, did you get a sense that it was your job to lose, or what was kind of going through your mind during that portion?
I don't think you ever say that. I think that you go into things, that, you go into, at least my approach has always been, you go in to compete, and you just want to be able to express yourself to the best of your ability. And I think what I tried to do was just be myself. You hear that a lot. And I thought that I just wanted to express myself fully so that there were no surprises, no secrets. I wanted to do a lot of listening because I think that's one of the components of leadership that you must have. You have to be a good listener. So I wanted to listen to them and, all the things that they had to say, the positives, the negatives, stuff in the between, a lot of the history. And I tried to learn a lot, and I think that that's something, the more I learned, the more I think we connected. And I think that that's why it was able to work out.
And when you got offered the job, I guess, what were the emotions that went through your body or your mind? And what was the first thing you did when you got the job?
Well, it was a dream come true because, for a lot of people, like I compare it to when a player walks across that stage and he gets drafted, and you see the emotion when a player goes across the draft stage. Like we've all seen it, right? And the emotion and what that's like. And I think all of us that watch the NFL draft, like the reason why people love the NFL draft is because dreams are coming true right before your eyes, And I think that when I was offered this opportunity to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, that was my draft day. That was my dream coming true because this is all I've ever wanted to do since I was a little kid. I started drinking coffee in the first grade and reading the sports pages because I wanted to be here doing this job. And for me, it's just, you flash back to all those moments, all those years, of investing to trying to be able to get there. So it's just like a flashback, and it was such a happy moment. It was, all this energy inside of you because, all the people that helped you, that were responsible for you being here, and everything kind of, gets captured in that moment. And, after I got the job, the first thing I did was call my wife, so, it's something that, I'll remember for a lifetime.
And Brandon, just kind of doing research, I guess, on your defensive scheme. I'm not even sure I could call it a scheme because I think it's a very, I guess, going off of player strengths kind of, philosophy. I guess, how would you describe your defensive philosophy as a coach?
We want to uniquely shape it around our guys. And I think that that's probably the hallmark of the way we play is that agility that we have to feature, our premium players. And I think that the flexibility we have to match up with the specific offenses that we're having to face all the time. And I think that that's a real hallmark of how we played. And I think, it sort of expressed itself this year. And I think the way that we play on defense is the exact way we want to play on offense and in the kicking game. And I think that's what I wanted to express in the interview is that we want to put people in conflict. We want to use multiple groupings to take advantage of our players. We want to play with different tempos to put, people, in a real bind. And so, people talk about complementary football, that's how you do it is you have offense, defense, and the kicking game, right, as mirror images of one another, and that is how I believe you can take it, a really long way in this league.
And Brandon, I know you got plenty of time to kind of figure out the X's and O's, but are you planning on keeping the 3-4 defense, at least in the base defense, or what are you thinking there for that type of defense for the Chargers?
Gilberto, it's such a great question because it's like, okay, what are you personnel wise? I think, you have to have a framework of how you meet with your players, but we play so many different groupings. As you guys know, there's so much 5 DB defenses in the NFL. It's almost 75, 80%, 3 receivers in the game on offense. So, we play a lot of 5 DB groupings, but I think how we express, whether we're in 5 DB groupings, 4 DB groupings, how many defensive linemen, linebackers in the game. I think that that's kind of what makes us unique, is that we're not tied to one specific, way of playing. But I think what you can count on is that guys like Joey Bosa, guys like Derwin James, guys like Kenneth Murray, all these guys that I can't wait to talk to and coach, that they're going to be featured, to the best of their abilities. And we're going to collaborate and create with them to make sure that they do what they do best.
And Brandon, is this a plan for you to call the plays on defense, or is that for the defensive coordinator's job?
Yes, that's the plan right now on defense, is for me to call the plays right now. And, and we're going to hire a tremendous defensive staff, that's going to help me do that.
And just curious, Brandon, you played quarterback in college for 2 colleges. How did you kind of shift over from offense to defense when you first started as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's been one of the unique advantages that I've had. I think that when you're in the huddle, number one, the quarterback, you're responsible for all 22 guys on the field. That's the reality. You can't just know one job when you're the quarterback. You're responsible for all 22. And I think the other thing about being a quarterback is you're responsible for your entire team. Setting the example each and every day, being able to connect with any type of player, anybody within your building. Everybody's looking at you every single day. And I think when I got to the defensive side of the ball, I saw that as a big advantage, and seeing the game from the other side. And I think the more I learned about defensive football, the more I knew that I was going to be a defensive coach with an offensive mind, if that makes sense. And I think that being able to operate at the speed of these, special quarterbacks, which makes this league so unique, that's how, I've tried to shape our defense.
Thank you, Brandon, and congrats.
Thank you.
Dennis Freeman.
Congratulations, Coach Staley.
Thank you.
Coach Staley, when did you know that you were actually ready to go after a head coaching position?
Dennis, that's such a good question. I could say that, like when I was 7 years old, start, reading the sports page, that I was kind of on my way, because that's what I was hoping to do. But I think Dennis, I really felt like I could be a head coach. When I went to junior college in Kansas, I think that was an experience that really shaped me. It was my first defensive coordinator job. I was the associate head coach, and I really started thinking, about how to run a team, and I think that experience, really kind of moved me. And then moving on to some amazing places, like John Carroll, I think that I had a strong sense that that's what I wanted to do. And I felt like that I had the capacity to be able to do it well. And then, once that feeling sort of came into me, I feel like I, was working hard every day since to hopefully be good enough to have a chance to do it. And I think, to do this job well, you've really got to work at it. And that's all I've been doing, is trying to, really work at my game so that I could do this at the highest level.
You had a dominant defense with the Rams. When you look at the current roster for the defensive unit now, the Chargers, do you see this unit being just as dominant?
Well, when I came to the Rams, there was a lot of work to do, and there were a lot of good players there, but I felt like, the number one thing, Dennis, that I really wanted to establish with the Rams was us becoming a team, and I think that's, I think the biggest challenge any coach has is you have all these pieces that you guys are aware of here that, Tom and John and everybody's done such a good job with, the players that a lot of you guys know about. But I think, the secret is bringing that group together, and establishing your way of playing. I think that's really important before you get into, how you're going to use people. Are you going to come together to create a foundation of how to play defense? Because that's what we did with the Rams. And I think once you do that, then you can proceed, into how you're going to deploy those guys and how you're going to tactically, utilize your pieces as a defense. But I will tell you that I'm really excited, to coach these guys. It's from afar, it's not difficult to see that there are some big time players here in place. You certainly already have ideas about, how you might express them, within your defense. And I just can't wait to start that process with these guys.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Let's go to Julian Delgadillo.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on the hire, first and foremost. You've kind of touched on this, but what really just solidified your decision to you didn't really have to move too far, but to be the Chargers head guy?
Number one was the people, Julian, the leadership, ownership. I think it really starts there. Just having our visions, align with one another. I think, my family means everything to me. And so I wanted, people that accepted my family and wanted our vision for how to lead a team, and I think it's one thing to get a head coaching job. All right. But it's another thing to get the right head coaching job, and that's something that we were certainly after. And then the other thing is just, I think the players here, and then, the city of LA, like the word that just always, I think expressed itself in my mind was possibility. Like, I think there's just so much possibility here. And I felt like my vision for how to do this would make that possibility, a reality.
And you mentioned just reaching out to former players. I was curious if you've talked to Philip Rivers at all. I know he just had that big announcement yesterday, but just, your thoughts on him and what he's meant to this franchise.
No, just, we're around the same age, and so I've, all the way from NC State to now, just so much respect. I've got his cell phone number, and yesterday was a very important day to him. So I'm sure my message in there is somewhere lost, but I've had to compete against this guy. And, I think it's very rare that you come around a player that's had as big of an impact on a team as he has, and to do it as long as he has, 17 seasons, and I think that yesterday is probably the best, illustration of what he means to the game, not just to the Chargers, but to the game. He's one of the elite competitors that I've ever seen. I know some people that have coached him in both places, and what he represents and the type of person he is, just so much respect. And hopefully when things die down a little bit, we can connect. And, I've heard he's going into coaching too, so maybe we can collaborate a little bit and talk some ball soon.
Yeah, get some early recruiting going. Actually, I had the same question for Mr. Spanos, just what Philip Rivers meant to this organization and what that announcement meant yesterday.
Yeah. And I mean, I could literally talk for hours about Philip. I know we don't have all day, but I could talk all day about him. And I was communicating with him yesterday, and, it's really hard to put into words exactly the level of gratitude and appreciation that I have for him, and just how blessed I feel to have worked alongside him for 16 years. He's a very, very special player and a special human being. And we exchanged some really great words yesterday. And, I think Coach Staley put it really well. What he's meant to this franchise is just tremendous. And again, I mean, it's really hard to put into words, but I mean, shoot, I could sit here all day and talk Philip Rivers' story. Let me tell you, he's a special, special man.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Good luck this season. And that's all for me.
Cam Buford.
Hey, this directed to Mr. Brandon Staley. Congratulations on the job, sir.
Thank you, Cameron.
My question for you is, what do you expect to be the traits that are indicative of a Brandon Staley coach football team?
Yeah, I love that question, Cameron. I really, something that's really important to me, Cameron, is that we have a connected team. When you talk about like the traits of, I think a championship team, and certainly the team that, I'm going to try and build is a connected team, a team that knows one another, offense, defense, in the kicking game, and a team that knows how we're planning to win the game, but even before that, how we're planning to compete together, because competition comes long before winning does, and I think that a connected team is certainly, at the forefront of what we're trying to create here. And I think a team, that's mentally and physically tough. This is a really, really difficult game. It's a really difficult league. And you have to have guys with makeup, Cameron, you got to have guys with makeup that when you play in all these big games, all these tight games, against all these great players and coaches, you got to have guys that when you got to have it, that you have it, and so you can only do that with people with makeup, and there's so many challenges that you're going to face each and every day in this league, let alone when you play. And, you know, I think that mental and physical toughness is something that means a lot. So I think those two things really stand out, is being a connected team and being a mentally and physically tough team.
Speaking of the challenges, this defense was challenged last season. The missed tackles were a problem, and sacks were a problem. How do you? Maybe this is getting a little ahead of ourselves, but formulating, focusing on those areas. Are those areas of focus for you, or what else would be an area of focus for you moving, working with this defense?
Cameron, you know, great points. You know, it's going to be difficult to win if you don't tackle well in this league, and I think that so much of tackling is fundamentals. And, you know, I think that, you know, for you to be as good of a team, you know, a lot of people want to talk about design, guys, and rightfully so. But what wins in this league is technique, you know, and fundamentals. You know, so something that is at the core of our program in all three phases is being a technique-oriented team. You know, because if you play with technique, you know, you're always going to have a chance to be successful. So there's fundamentals, Cameron, to playing defense. You got to be able to kill blocks, you got to be able to tackle, and you got to be able to take the ball away. You know, that's just fundamental to playing defense. And I think those are things that, you know, we've been able to establish at other places that I've been, both in the pro game and college game. And they're going to be at the forefront of everything that we do, because that's the essence of football, you know? And so we'll need to get to work on that as soon as we can.
And lastly, for me, as a QB, as a former QB, what would you say are the strengths or areas of improvement for Mr. Justin Herbert? And thank you for taking time to answer these questions for us.
Thank you, Cameron. You know, I think something that's really unique about Justin is you guys are aware of his physical abilities. This guy's got size. I mean, prototypical size, athletic, really strong arm. He can access any part of the field, outside the numbers, down the seams, really accurate on the move. You know, really hard guy to tackle, elusive, you know, in the pocket. But one thing that really stood out to me this year was how good he was in 2 minute. I was able to catch a couple of these games where he really thrived in 2 minute situations. And, you know, you guys talked about Phillip Rivers, you know, and when you talk about these elite quarterbacks, Cameron, like a Phillip Rivers, you know, a Drew Brees, the guys that are playing this weekend, you know, and there's 4 great quarterbacks playing in this game who I've competed against. You know, the best quarterbacks are great at the end of the game. You know, they are great at the end of the game, end a half, end a game. And I think that Justin certainly expressed himself to the NFL in that way. And what's exciting is that, you know, he's just at the beginning. So fired up to, you know, really dive into his game because there's just so far to go, you know, and that's what's going to be exciting, is to see how far we can take this together.
Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
Chris Harry.
Coach, welcome to the Chargers. I wanted to ask you about this last year with the Rams, and you know, you pick up knowledge along the way in your coaching journey. What did you learn from Sean McVay and just the way that he approaches offense that had an impact on you?
Yeah, such a great question, Christopher. I think the thing that Sean does is he shapes the game around the quarterback. He shapes our offense around the quarterback. You know, Jared Goff's a different player than Justin Herbert, you know, who's a different player than, you know, Pat Mahomes or whomever, Aaron Rodgers, you name it. These guys are all unique players. And that's what I talked about with a system. You know, you want to be able to create a system around your quarterback, you know, and I think that that's what I've tried to do on defense. You know, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, Von Miller, those guys are different players. You know, they really are. They're all special, right? You know, but they're different, you know, and I think something that Sean does a good job of is he plays, you know, to the strength of the quarterback and really tries to get him in rhythm, tries to get him in a comfort zone, has a lot of different ways to get that guy going within a game. And then he's got a lot of solutions to all the really hard problems that quarterbacks face, you know, in this league. And there are a lot of them. You know, you got to create solutions for your quarterback when you're playing against premium players, premium defenses. And I think that that's something that Sean does an excellent job with.
And Coach, I got to talk to one of your former players, Sam Acho, yesterday, and he first joked that he said, "Why is this quarterback coaching linebackers?" But he said that you were able to teach linebackers from a quarterback's vision. How beneficial is that going to be in your relationship with Justin, having that defensive background and being able to really kind of match wits with Justin? We know how smart he is.
Yeah, just I would say, Christopher, I think that is probably the thing I'm most excited about, is that now I get to be an offensive coach for the first time, since, maybe calling some plays with my brothers in the backyard. I get to be an offensive coach now too. And what I mean by that is I want to share, all the knowledge that I have to help Justin, hopefully have a dual education. He's going to be getting this amazing education from our offensive coaching staff, but then there's this other education that hopefully I can give him to sort of shape and complete, his game as a player. And a lot of the coaches, Christopher, that I admire, a Mike Tomlin, a Tony Dungy, a Pete Carroll, a Jimmy Johnson, John Harbaugh, these guys that are defensive coaches that I have great respect for, what they also have in common is they've all had, young quarterbacks that they've coached that have become some of the best in the game. And I think that and I forget Bill Belichick, there's just, so many defensive coaches that I admire. And I think that there's something to that, is being able to just add to their game and get to see the game just a little bit more completely. And I'm really excited to get started with Justin in that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Daniel Popper.
Hey, Brandon, you mentioned that you started reading the sports page in the first grade. Did you ever want to be a sports writer?
I actually was a sports clerk for the News Herald in Willoughby, Ohio. It's a great suburban newspaper. My high school tight end, Dan Murphy, his dad was the sports editor at the paper. So I was a sports clerk at the News Herald. So that was something that, I was one of these guys that just, was memorizing things at a young age and kind of just a gym rat that way. So, that's why I admire the work that you guys do so much. Cause I know how late I've been a clerk late at night, putting some agate, together. So, I can appreciate, the late nights that you guys go through.
Yeah. I cut my teeth at the Stanford Advocate, putting an agate into the newspaper. So we all started there. Everyone talks about how great of a teacher you are. I mean, Tom said it in his statement. I mean, Sean has said it repeatedly. John said it at the start of this press conference. How much of an influence was your mother in terms of you becoming a good teacher and how you apply that as a football coach?
She's, like I said, she's the best teacher I've ever seen. Certainly. She was an English teacher, reading teacher. And I think, she just had an amazing quality to listen. And people just really felt like they could be themselves around her. She was always able to reach people that were more difficult to reach. I think she just had a belief system in people that, I'll always remember, she's not here, but she's with me. And I think, what she could do is she could get a relationship with someone and really bring out the best in them, because she knew how to teach them. Every student was just a little bit different. And I think seeing that up close when I was a little kid and growing up, I saw the power in that. And, certainly I've tried to embody a lot of that, as a coach.
So for those of us who aren't inside, a football building all the time, why is teaching so important to having success on a football field?
Daniel, I think it's because there's so much to learn. There's so much that these players have to be responsible for. I think guys, that you guys that cover this league for a living, how difficult it is. The competition that exists out there each and every day, let alone when you play in the games. And it requires so much of you to be good at it. That's why I love the NFL. It requires so much of you to be good at it. And I think that the people that can explain things the best, can get their players ultimately to play well when it counts, and when you explain things and when you communicate, is that person really receiving, what you're, bringing to the table, or are you just transmitting information? I think there's a big difference between receiving something and transmitting it, and so what we try to do is when we teach, we're connecting right with our guys, and then we're listening a lot. There's this back and forth, there's this collaboration to create something really unique. And I think when players feel like you're invested in that way, where you're not just going at them, you're going with them, I think it's really powerful where you can take it, because I've learned a lot from Jalen Ramsey. I've learned a lot from Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack. I've learned a lot from those guys, Sam Acho. And I think that if you just, will take a second to listen to them, you'll be surprised what you find out, and I felt like that's always something that I've tried to do.
So I wanted to ask you about 3 defensive players specifically that you mentioned, and sort of what specifically about their games excites you the most between Joey Bosa, Derwin James, and Kenneth Murray. Those 3 guys, like, what specifically about their games excites you the most as far as what, you working with them moving forward?
Yeah, man, I think Joey's one of the elite outside rushers in the game. This guy's got every tool that you're looking for: size, speed. He's got, some of the best hands in the NFL. Just this guy really knows how to rush. He's a relentless competitor. He's got a motor, what all great rushers have in common. And I was just with, one of the greatest that has ever played in the National Football League, is they've got a motor, and they're relentless. And I think that really describes Joey. And by the way, this guy's tough. I mean, this is a tough football playing Jesse now. And so I like that about this guy. And the people that I know his high school coach really well, George Smith, his family, football family. And this guy's just got outstanding makeup. And then when you talk about Derwin James, guys, it's hard to stand out in this league, right? I mean, because everybody is so amazing. But when every now and then you just see a guy that, man, he just stands out. And I just, saw this guy before the press conference. Okay. And I'm just here to tell you, okay, this guy stands out. Okay. And just ask my kids, because they know all these guys. They've been around some of these players, and, they know that 33 is just a little bit different than the rest. And so just so impressed with his versatility. Know a lot of his coaches from college, the competitor he is, his future is so bright. Can't wait to connect with him and compete. And then Kenneth, man, I just really think, this guy can run. He's got a lot of versatility as a linebacker. He can run, he can rush, he can cover. And I think that he's got those traits to truly be, one of these complete linebackers. And now what he just needs is the knowledge, and experience to really command the game, and instinctively play the game at a high level against all these great offenses. So I think those guys are all, tremendous building blocks, Daniel, like you said, and can't wait to start working with them.
Just as far as the offensive plan, you've talked about it a lot, but Justin had success in his rookie season, in the scheme and system he was playing in. Does any part of you think that there would be benefits to keeping components of what he had as a rookie, whether it's the support system he had on this coaching staff, certain concepts that you're running, or do you want to sort of restart the whole thing, start afresh, and sort of mold it in your specific image?
Yeah, Daniel, I think those are great points. I think they're, all of them really, but I think what you always want to do as a coach is build off the comfort zone that a player has, and I think that is what I was talking about, uniquely shaping a system around him, because he needs to have, such a big part in it. And even though he's a young player, there's still going to be things that he knows, and because as you guys know, this guy's got high capacity. And I think that there are going to be new things, that I, tried to communicate within the interview process. There are going to be new things that I think, can really help bring out the best in his game, and I think that that's what's exciting. And I think if so much of a young quarterback, in this league is kind of that journey that you have to go on, to get to that level. And I think that when you look at Justin's journey, just even at Oregon, being able to go through what was it, 4 different systems, and then, and then be able to thrive this year, in a pandemic where he didn't really get those reps that are so, vital for a quarterback. I think what it does, Daniel, more than anything, it just speaks to his makeup and where the possibility is. But we're going to make sure moving forward that we have an offensive staff that brings out the best in him. And I can't wait for us to express that to you once we've gone through that process.
Last one for you, Brandon, then I've one for Tom. What is your overall philosophy on using analytics to make decisions?
Yeah, Daniel, such a big component of football and sports, I think, really over the last, I would say 5 to 7 years for sure. And I think, Daniel, like data, like facts bring people together. I read a great book, Measure What Matters by John Doerr, and, I think that there's so many things now that we can measure in pro football, whether it's on the field or off the field in training, right draft process. I think analytics is a great way to bring more information to decision makers. And I think, something I talked about with Tom and John, is what analytics does is it helps drive better decision making, and we're certainly going to try and do everything we can to, invest resources in that so that, that we can be at the forefront of that movement, because that is where the game is going, and then knowing at the same time, you have to have context and feel and all that stuff that is equally as important. So think that, you bring up a great point and something that, will definitely be a part of the Chargers.
Thanks. Just one for Tom. What sold you on Brandon's offensive vision, Tom?
Tom, you're on mute.
Sorry, everybody. I think we've talked about it already, having his background coming up high school, college on offense, I think that helps. And the people he's been around and learned from, but he has a good feel for both sides of the ball, which the head coach has to have, and the kicking game. So, as we talked about, as we put the staff together, he has a vision for what he wants to do, and it's going to be under construction right now. This could take a couple weeks to put the whole staff together, but as a defensive coordinator, you have to know the offensive side of the ball. That's part of that job description. And then him having an offensive background helps. And look, I'm watching the playoff game last weekend, Baltimore and Buffalo, and there's two head coaches down there. One has a defensive background and one has a special teams background. And they both have young quarterbacks and they're both doing very well. So there's different ways to do this. But Brandon is very sharp. I feel like he knows both sides of the ball. We're going to put a good staff together. And we're going to let it roll.
Yeah. And Daniel, if I may add just one more thing to that, when I touched on this idea of a vertical alignment coming from the head coach, the things that are going to make this offense here successful, the philosophies, the strategies, the components, they're going to come from Brandon. So, I understand if we have success here, we may have offensive coordinators who get hired to be head coaches. But those components that I talked about, it's impossible for them to leave when they're coming from the head coach. And I think that's why the vertical alignment is so important. And that's one of the things we're really excited that Coach Staley is going to bring.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're coming up on the hour mark, and I still got more than a dozen hands. So the good thing is we are going to get to talk to Brandon more throughout the weeks, months, and years ahead here. But we'll try and get through everyone we can. Probably 1:15 is about our out time. So let's plow ahead here. Michael Peterson, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, congratulations on the hire.
Thank you, Michael.
This past year with the Rams, you had a number of breakout players, really have career seasons, and guys like Darius Williams, Troy Hill, Leonard Floyd had his first double-digit season. Was there any similarities between those players and any other players who had a good year where they kind of, that switch flipped, where they just kind of figured it out, and that's why they had the seasons they did?
Yeah, I think, Michael, I think just in pro ball, the three teams that I've been on, if you kind of go back to Chicago, kind of what we did for Akeem Hicks, Kyle Fuller, and Eddie Jackson kind of coming, expressing himself to the league, Eddie Goldman, Roy Robertson Harris, a Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith. I think that player development has been at the core of a core strength of places I've been, Michael, is taking players, there's some obvious, talented guys that just, they crush it right away. But I think player development, this is a developmental game. And I think, we've talked a lot about the teaching element, but I think a hallmark of where we've been is we've been able to take players and help their game, really express itself to the league. And those were some guys in Chicago and Denver, Justin Simmons comes to mind, guys, that became a second team All-Pro. And then those guys that you mentioned with the Rams. And I think that that's something is that the hallmark of our team is just developing our guys and putting them in unique positions that allow them, to play their best ball, and I think that, that's such a team effort, and it's something that you have to be so intentional about. And I think that those are just some examples of players on the defensive side that I've had, experience with, that we've been able to kind of, take it a long way with. And, and again, Michael, those players that you just mentioned, that I just mentioned, they're the ones that deserve the credit because they're the ones out there doing it, but what we're hoping to do is have these relationships that allow those guys, to feel like they can go take it, as far as they can.
Now, you've had the opportunity to work with guys like Vaughn, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, and that wealth of talent, not many people get to work with, especially, in the span of 4 years. Working with those guys, is there anything that you learned from them that maybe helped you become a better defensive coordinator?
Man, Michael, just such a great point, and one I'm excited to share about. You learn a lot more from them than they learn from you. I learned a lot more from Khalil Mack than he learned from me. There's a lot of guys that could coach Khalil Mack now. I'm just here to tell you now. This guy's going to play good for whomever now. Okay. So is Aaron Donald. So is Jalen Ramsey. They're going to play good for whomever. But I think what we've been able to do is have those great players play their best for us. Play their best for us. And I think that's what's special. And what you must have in order for them to play their best is you must have their trust and respect. And they must know that everything that you're doing is engineered to try and help them. And I think that is the rare, recipe. And I think that if those guys that you just mentioned have helped my game in such a big way moving forward, and all I can do is try and give back to those guys because they've given so much to me.
And I just want to get your thoughts on this youth movement coming through the NFL, the coaching ranks with yourself, Sean McVay, Zach Taylor, Joe Brady's 31 years old, was a candidate for some head coaching positions this offseason. Just your thoughts on seeing all these young coaches under the age of 40 getting these opportunities.
Yeah, I think that access to information, Michael, can explain, I think, a lot of it. I think younger people now have more access to information than ever before. 10 years seems like 20 years now because just the amount of information you have in the palm of your hand. And it's almost like, guys, when we look at our phones, it's not what's in the palm of your hand, it's what you make of it. And I think that, you can push this thing and take it a long way if you're willing to invest in your game, and I think that, it's not uncommon in the history of the game for young coaches to sort of, emerge. I mean, Mike Tomlin was 34 years old when he was 35 years old when he became a head coach. There's a lot of young guys, Bill Belichick, some of these guys that were really young head coaches. I don't think that's unique, but I think maybe the amount that you're talking about, Michael, I think the amount of information that you have access to, and then what you do with that information and trying to apply it, I think that could explain it some.
Thank you, Coach.
Nikki K.
Hi, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
9 times out of 10, a move and a hire in your industry means moving across the country. This might just mean a transition down the 405. What have the past couple of days looked like for you and your family in terms of logistics and still being able to call SoFi home?
I can tell you, Nikki, that my wife and my family are really excited about that distance that you just talked about, as opposed to a global move. Hopefully my mother's looking down on us a little bit on this one. I know that, that's one of the unique, I think, parts of this, is that we've fallen in love with California. I'm from Cleveland. My wife's from Chicago. I don't think in our wildest dreams together, we would have thought that, like California would feel like home to us. And it's amazing when we got here in the middle of a pandemic, how much this felt like home to us. And I think that had a big part in being drawn to this opportunity, is how much we feel like this, feels like home to us. And we're so excited to meet the people of Los Angeles, Southern California. And I think it fits the Staley family well.
Wonderful. And on another note, last year was so transformative for professional sports and the social justice movement. You're coming in as a white head coach into a locker room, which had that bond and those tough conversations. How do you approach that and make sure that your players and staff know that the door is open and that you're ready to listen and continue the conversations?
Nikki, just such a great question. I think, yesterday was a big moment for our country. As you guys know, I talked to my defense in LA with the Rams. We just had the first female vice president in the history of this country, right? 1776, we have a female vice president. And she happens to be a woman of color. I mean, just amazing. In my lifetime, we've had an African-American president. Amazing. And I think that that's something that I try to tell our players, is that there's just so much possibility in life if you're willing to listen and learn about each other. And I think what we've discovered over the last year is, especially a person like me, is when you listen, there's a lot that you can learn from people. And if you open up your eyes and you open up your ears, I think it can make you better. And I think that, here in Los Angeles, seeing it up close and personal with one of the great, one of the premier American cities that has experienced so much in the history of this city just alone. I think, going back, 40, 50 years, I think you realize the opportunity that you have and the responsibility that you have. And, I just think that that's something that I'm really excited to be a part of, my family and I. And I think that, all we can do is create a brotherhood within our organization of players, staff, coaches, our fans, really create something unique where we're there for one another at all times, that we have a lot of different ways to express, engage, all those things that are happening that are so important. But I think yesterday really represents, I think, what I'm about, and that's in highlighting and engaging all the possibilities that this world has to offer.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Jeff Miller.
Tom, what sold you on hiring a coach with only 4 years of NFL experience?
Well, first of all, it's a credit to Brandon and the work he's put in and the people he's learned from, from his parents to every coach he's had coming up as a player and then as a coach. But, if you're going to be light in one area, I think you need to be high level in some others. And in this situation, number one, it's high level maturity. I think you're seeing that in the last, 65 minutes, the maturity level that he has. You got to be a high level teacher and communicator. You're seeing the communication part right now. You'll see the teacher part more when we get on the grass. And then you have to be able to connect. And we've used that word a lot today. We're turning it into a buzzword, but it really is true. I mean, you have to be able to connect with players, with assistant coaches, with the front office, with support staff. And it's really important. And last week, I had a call with Tony Dungy, and we're talking not necessarily about individual candidates, but just about the process so far. And Tony says, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, 50 years, 3 head coaches, all hired in their 30s, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin, and all won Super Bowls. But I asked him at that point, I said, what did you see in Mike Tomlin? Because he's the one that hired Mike Tomlin initially from college to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And remember, now Mike's career was, offensive player in college, young college coach for a couple of years, and then a young position coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then a 1-year coordinator with the Vikings. And Tony said he knew in 6 weeks that Mike Tomlin was the future head coach just by how he handled his position room. And at that point, that position group, he was the defensive backs coach. That position group was John Lynch, Dexter Jackson, Brian Kelly, Rondé Barber, and how Mike Tomlin connected with all those players. And Coach Dungy saw that immediately. So, and he connected with those players despite his age. So I'm not comparing Brandon to Mike Tomlin, because Mike Tomlin is in history is one of the best coaches this league has seen. But there's some similar traits at a similar age of how they handled their players, how they connected with their players. And I think that's really exciting for us to see.
And Brandon, with putting together your staff, are you likely to try to get an older coach, somebody who's maybe been an NFL head coach somewhere on the staff, just to kind of help you through this transition?
Yeah, Jeff, I think Tom mentioned it. You want to compliment yourself. You got to, I think self-awareness is such an important part to leadership, to life. And that was certainly a part of my thought process in the interview. And that's definitely an avenue that we're already exploring, and look forward, like I said, to when that staff fully expresses itself. You will see people that have all those experiences, Jeff, that maybe I don't have, and I said, I talked about listening and learning, and I think that there's so many components to that topic that you're talking about. That is important for me, is to be surrounded by people that can make me better. you know, and that's something that I hope to embody, is that I want to improve. I want to get better. And the only way you do that is if you do it, you know, with people who can.
Brandon, it's pretty well known that you wanted to talk to one of the coaches on the Ram staff and were blocked. Did you talk to Sean about that, or did you even jokingly, or as kind of a, now that you guys are rivals?
Jeff, you know, Sean McVay and I are so close. I would say that the competition in this league is fierce. As you know, it's fierce. And but the friendships last they last a lifetime. And I'll just say that the respect that you know, the Chargers and the Rams have for one another is immense. And you know, we'll always have that, you know. So you know, moving forward with our staff, you know, we're just still at the beginning of that process. And you know, we'll be excited to share it with you guys in due time.
And last thing for me, Brandon, you are a cancer survivor yourself. How did that experience shape you as a human being?
Yeah, cancer's been such a big part of my life. I see Shelly Smith looking at me right now, who I've not met, but who I have, you know, the utmost respect for. And, you know, just such a big part of my journey. You know, my dad just, you know, he just finished with prostate cancer treatment in the fall. Good news. It's the second time he's had it. My mom passed away from breast cancer, as you guys know. But I think when I went through my own, you know, cancer journey through chemotherapy, 6 months, radiation, 6 weeks, I think you really, you know, I looked at it as a chance to compete. I thought it was a chance that could really bring out all the best in me. And I think when you get to the other side of it, Jeff, I think when you get past it, when you get through the other side of it, there's an energy, there's a strength, there's a feeling that you can do anything that you dream of. And that's what I've been trying to do every day since.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Timothy Parker.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach, congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all, I got to say, you got to be the happiest coach I've ever talked to. I hope you don't become jaded and remain that way as you go through your career.
Yeah, that's not going to be happening anytime soon, bud.
Yes, sir. So you were a hot commodity in the coaching market this offseason. What was it about the Chargers that made you feel like it was the right fit? I know you mentioned it earlier, but do you believe this place is the best place for you to win?
I do, Timothy. You know, my goal in earning a head coaching opportunity wasn't just to be a head coach. It was to be, you know, a great head coach. And the only way you can accomplish that is if you feel like you have an organization that sees you, you know, and your vision, and feels you and your vision the same way. And I felt like that's as important as any like situation is, do they value what you bring to the table, and can they help you become the best version of yourself? And I felt like with the Spanos family, with Tom, with Ed McGuire, with these players, with our staff and this city, I really felt like it could really, you know, just be an amazing fit. And I just see, like I said, Timothy, just so much possibility with this opportunity.
And I'm assuming staying in LA is the cherry on top.
You know, Los Angeles, I'll tell you what, it's captured the Staleys for sure. You know, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I love this city. And the great thing, Timothy, is I haven't even been able to experience that much of it, you know? And so I can only imagine when I dive in and get to meet all the amazing people that make this city so diverse and so special. I can't wait. We can't wait.
Hey,
Well,
Tim,
congrats.
Hey, Tim, Brandon's from Cleveland. I'm from Buffalo. So we love our hometowns, but how can you not love it out here?
Oh, yeah, I'm from Philly, so trust me. I'm with you. I'll end with this, Coach. You mentioned the history of cancer with your family. What will you be doing in this Southern California area to get the message out in the fight against cancer and all those types of things?
Yeah,
And
Timothy, I think that's what's really exciting about this platform. You know, everybody's got, you know, something that they're really passionate about. You know, for me, education and cancer are two really big things, you know, with both my parents being teachers and, you know, us being a cancer family. Those are things that we're so excited to be a part of, because when you can be a part of a movement that helps people, you know, that's ultimately right. Like when my mom was going through cancer, she formed her own support group, and I saw what she did for other people. And when you get to a position like this, when you have a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of it. You have a responsibility to take advantage of it. And I think in this city, there's just so much that we can connect with, you know, that you can get on the ground and you can be a part of. And we talked about, you know, earlier with Nikki, the social justice movement. And this is one of these cities in the middle of it, right? That you can go arm in arm with people and you can make a difference, you know? And I know that I speak for my wife and I when we say we can't wait to be a part of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hernandez.
Tom, this one's for you. You kind of mentioned earlier, you know, the specificity with which Brandon spoke, you know, during the interview process. And I was just kind of wondering, you know, just from like a football X's and O's type idea, how much, I guess, more specific were his ideas than maybe some of the other candidates? And how different, I guess, maybe even were some of his ideas?
I wouldn't call it necessarily more specific than other candidates, but you know, the vision for his defense is easy to see because I can see it on the field, and how he talks about it, how he's going to teach it, the multiple fronts that they use with the Rams and that he's used with in other places he's been, 3-man front, 4-man front, 5-man front, mixing in different coverages. So that was easy to see. And then, you know, his vision of the offense and how he's wants to stress the defense. He knows what stresses him as a defensive coordinator because he can see it from the other side. So, you know, as he put that together, and look, everybody can voice it. I mean, they're all football coaches. Everybody knows the X's and O's. We're trying to find what systems we think will fit best for us, that fit best for some of the players we have now, and then how we're going to keep building that as we add to this team, whether it's through free agency trades or the draft. And he verbalized that very, very easily. And, you know, he has a really innate ability to make complex subjects simple to understand, which I think is why he's a great teacher as well. But it's very easy for us to communicate back and forth as far as what he's looking for in each player at each position. You know, every player you bring in and it's not going to be a perfect player. He can't be Superman. There's going to be strengths, weaknesses, how we're going to play to them, how we're going to minimize those weaknesses. And he's very clear and concise of what he's looking for, which makes it easier for the scouting staff to find players that's going to fit exactly what he wants to do, because that's their job.
And Brandon, obviously this has happened, right? The last 4 years, I mean, it's been right from Carroll to here. It's been very quick. Is there any part of you that's kind of, you know, thinking, oh man, like, am I really ready for this? You know, this has happened so quickly.
No, I don't feel that way, Dylan. I would say that if you go back and you talk to those people that were with me, Dylan, at those places, I think that they would be very helpful and sort of giving you some background into what we were doing and how we were doing it. And I think that, you know, when I got to the NFL, Dylan, you know, the second I, you know, walked into a pro building in Chicago, I had a really strong belief system that I could do this job someday. Like as soon as I got to Chicago, I knew that I could do it. And I think it's because of all that work, you know, that I'd put in, you know, really every day of my life. But, you know, specifically when I became a coach, I think that, you know, I talked about confidence earlier. I got a lot of confidence. I drew a lot of confidence, you know, being able to coach a guy like Khalil Mack. And I think that, you know, that first season in Chicago and that first experience, I felt like, you know, I could do this someday. Certainly you got to prove it, which is a big part of, you know, any profession. And I felt like over the last 4 years, I've been able to do that. And I think, you know, in terms of the head coaching role, you know, I think I've been working my whole life to have the skill set, to have the capacity, the command to be able to do this job. So, because it's like Tom said, it's a very different job than just being a coordinator. It's very, very different. It requires so much more of you. And that's what I've really been spending my whole life working for, you know, is to be right where I am now.
You mentioned the amount of information available to young coaches in your generation now.
Sure.
And I was just kind of wondering, as far as like the analytics stuff goes, I assume when you were at Carroll, you guys didn't have a bunch of NASA scientists down in a basement, working stuff out. And so I was just kind of wondering. Okay, well, maybe you could correct me then. But as far as like your familiarity with analytics, did most of that come in the last 4 years in the NFL, or was it something that you were already kind of studying and becoming familiar with before you got to the league?
Yeah, I think all of us that like watched Moneyball and sort of like read that book and then watched that movie, I think all of us sort of like, analytics took off after that. I think it certainly, I think it inspired many of us. And I think that all the things that, that you would be surprised that I did like along the way, like watching the MIT Sloan Analytics Conference, like you've got all this access on YouTube. And I think, one of my favorite movies is Good Will Hunting, and when he talks about, I got the Harvard education for $1.50 in late charges at the public library. I think like all of us can do that. Like we all have that access, and I think analytics, it's not anything new. It's just a fancier term for information, for data. And people have been working, through tendencies and personnel, reports, as long as the NFL has been, in existence. But what's I think been able to happen more, Dylan, is there've been more resources devoted to getting information quicker, and you have more access to different types of information, a wider variety of information that can help you. And as Tom would tell you, that really helps you in scouting. You take analytics in terms of driving your medical decisions. There's so much information, right, that you can utilize to help your players improve. And that's really what you're after. What you're after is to use all this information to help your players improve. And I think that, that's something that, the more I learn, and you always are learning, you never can learn enough, especially in that area. You just know that it can help you make better decisions and it can help your players improve.
I think you mentioned that you guys had kind of talked about the analytics stuff in the interview process. Just kind of wondering where you kind of gauge the Chargers are in terms, right, in compare relative to other teams right now with where your analytics department is, and at what level do you want to get it to, I guess?
I think it's evolving. It's evolving and it's growing. I think talking to Tom and John, they certainly have a vision for, what they see and where they think it can go. And I think that, so much of the organization is just trying to communicate effectively and see, the resources that we can develop, to being as good as we can be in that area. And I think for every team, that's probably a little bit different, and so I know that that's a big part of what, those guys have talked about with me, and certainly something that, we're going to try to do the best we can moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have 6 more hands up. Let's try and get through this as expeditiously as possible. Trying to get everybody here. Omar Ruiz, go ahead.
Hey, Brandon, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Given your Dayton and Sean McVay ties, just wondering if you had a relationship at all with John Gruden, who's now a division rival, and then given the proximity of Perry and Ashtabula in Ohio, if you have a relationship with Urban Meyer at all.
With John Gruden, we were both quarterbacks at Dayton, I tell you that I was a little better quarterback than he was, but after he won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, he was doing his book tour, going all over the place, and he came back to campus, and I'm sure he does not remember meeting me. I was young, back at school, but just one of the icons in the game, is, widely, documented, just a guy that I think is given a lot to the game, and someone that I have so much respect for, a guy that, is, as good of a football coach as there is, so much experience, so much knowledge. A lot of the guys that I've coached with, he's been a big part of their development, and you just know all the coaches that have coached for him, just in this league that have really made it what it is. So just so much respect for John, and being a fellow Flyer, and so is Chuck Knoll, by the way, fellow UD Flyer. We kind of share that, and that's amazing. Don't have a relationship with Urban.
Okay. And then you touched on it a little bit. You guys would be moving to Orange County here pretty soon, looking for a place. I mean, you're not going to still live up by the Rams, are you? Or Thousand Oaks?
No, Omar, that drive through LA, we're going to try and avoid that. And we're going to try and get closer down here. We're really excited about that. And if you got any good recommendations, throw them our way. But we're excited to move closer to here. And, I think that that's going to be one of the highlights for us is moving in and being a part of our community.
Cool. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Jorge Camacho.
Hi, Brandon. Congratulations for this job. What was your first impression about the defensive backs and this team?
Yeah, a lot of experience. As you guys know, I worked with Chris Harris, Junior, in Denver. Casey Hayward. We've got some young safeties that I think are really good. Adderley, certainly Derwin. Rayshawn Jenkins. There's a lot of good players here to be coaching. I think that you have to be good in the secondary to have a chance to take your defense as far as you can. I think that certainly was a strength of ours last year with the Rams, and certainly with the Broncos and the Bears. Our secondaries were all outstanding, and I think that we have a unique way of training them. That I think helps them become a unit. And I think those guys that Tom's been able to put together with John and all of our personnel department, I think we're really excited to coach that group.
And with the conversation with Derwin James, it gives you a clue about the chemistry and the defensive backs, really positive.
Yeah, this Derwin James guy, there's a lot of possibility. I use that word possibility. There's a lot of possibilities with this guy. And I'll tell you what's really special, Jorge, is just like I coached Jalen Ramsey, right? And Jalen's, certainly all pro, one of the best players in the game. But the amount of respect that he has for this guy is it's amazing. I mean, he FaceTimed me after I got this job. Jalen Ramsey FaceTimed me. And if you would have heard or seen the things that he said about Derwin James, it's just the ultimate respect. And, certainly seeing him today, so excited to get started with him.
And if I may, do you have any comment about Latin American Charger fans when they cross the border going to saw the team in San Diego, but now in Los Angeles, there's still a Chargers fan from Mexico going to watch the games? What do you think about the Latin American fans about that?
Yeah, I think every area, is unique, and you have to embrace all the things that area has to make it special. And I think that that's one of the great opportunities we have, is to really use that platform and engage that audience to become, some of our biggest fans, and really be a part of that community and addressing that demographic specifically. And I think that that's something that, our PR team, our content team, our marketing department, those are things that I think are just so important to be strong where you're strong and take advantage of all the natural, resources around you. And I think that that's what makes the game so special are your fans, and I told these guys, inside your building, everything's about the players. Outside the building, everything's about the fans. And I think that if you keep the main thing that way, you'll be in good shape.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Emmanuel Morgan.
Brandon, congrats, man.
How you doing, Emmanuel?
Good. Just quick for you and Tom. How does the combine situation affect your draft process, especially with being a new head coach?
Say that one more time, Emmanuel.
How does the combine situation, the lack of a combine, regular combine, how does it affect your draft process?
Well, it's going to change it a little bit. As long as I've been in the league, we've had a combine every single year until this year, so it's going to change a lot. But we've anticipated this for months, that this could happen, where the combine is more medical based than workouts. But the league has a very good plan put together that we're still going to get all the same information that we've always had. We're just have to gather a little bit differently. But like I said, this whole fall with our college scouts on doing their work, not necessarily on the road this year because of the pandemic, but we've figured out different ways to get all the information that we need to make the decisions we have to make. So it's going to be different, but I don't really anticipate any problems as we move through towards the draft in April. I really don't.
All right, Tom Archdeacon.
Yeah, Brandon, I'm from Dayton, and I want to go way back with you. Just one question here, a couple parts. I covered you when you were a quarterback, and I wanted to know what kind of Dayton football meant to you. And the other thing was, I remember one guy, I covered you the 2003 season. One game I was interviewing you, and you left to go call your mom after the game, and I talked to her afterwards at length, and she said you were the best medicine. That 3-hour span of a football game was the best medicine she could get. And just kind of what Dayton football meant to you, and then just that time, how you were the best thing your mom could have right then.
You know, met so many amazing guys, you know, played with so many amazing guys, met so many, you know, influential people, you know, professors and, you know, coaches that meant a lot to me. And, you know, I think, you know, one of the things that was unique about my college experience is I was going through a lot, you know, and there were so many people that were helping me through that. You know, being the starting quarterback, that was challenging enough, team captain, but, you know, you've got this other side that's happening, and you never would have been able to do it alone if it weren't for all those friends and teammates that I had, all those coaches, all those professors that meant so much to me. And I look back, you know, on that time for my mom, and, you know, I look back and I cherish those times, you know, talking to her after a game, and going home to see her after a game, because the truth is that she was the inspiration for, you know, me as a player. She's the inspiration for me now as a coach and as a father, as a husband. And like I said, there is no possible way I would be here if it weren't for her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos Mello.
Coach, congratulations.
Thank you, Carlos.
You talk about excellent players and an amazing group. Have a lot of talent in Chargers. Mr. Spanos said you love teaching. How can you teaching this team to win, to get the championship opportunity, and maybe the most important, capture a new Chargers fan?
Yeah, that's a really layered question and a really good one, Carlos. I think you have to be really intentional about putting a team together. And I talked about, you know, vision and mission. You got to be on a mission every day in the NFL. And I think that's one thing that's got to start right away, is that when we join up, and I don't know when that's going to be exactly, but having guys that are on a mission. You know, you can't have a mission statement if you don't have people that are on a mission. And in the NFL, it's too competitive for you not to be on one. But even more than that, you got to be on a mission together. You know, you got to be on an individual mission as a player, as a coach, staff, whomever. All right. But then you've got to be on a mission as a team, and you got to take that really seriously. And I think that if we can establish that, you know, taking advantage of the moment each and every day, lay it on the line every single day to be as good as you can be, then you're off to a really good start. And I think, you know, so much about winning, Carlos, is, you know, it happens long before the final result, you know, and it's establishing, you know, something special because of what you do every single day. And I think, you know, that's the beauty about putting a team together, having a successful organization. And I think that you become a winner, all right, by what you do every day with your habits and creating a standard of excellence every single day that you are on a mission, you know, towards. And I think that, you know, that's the thing that, you know, we've got to get started with right away.
Coach, finally, you have a message to all Chargers fans with the support every year, every game?
Yeah, you know, I think this game is about the fans, and I think so much of the honor and just it's so amazing to represent. I think people that root for a team. I think it's really, really special because, you know, there's people that when they tune in on a Sunday, it means so much to them, and we have a responsibility to do all we can do to make those people proud, whether we win or we lose. That we're going to do things the right way. That we have an organization that they can be proud of. That they can stay with us through the tough times that are inevitable in the league. But ultimately, when we put that product on the field, that they're very proud of the people that are wearing Chargers colors. And that's what we got to get to work on right away so that those fans of ours are proud of us, because we need to earn their respect and earn their trust. And, you know, I'm excited to start that process.
Coach, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Final question here. Given the earlier shout out, we'll hand that one to Shelly Smith. Go ahead, Shelly.
I'm sorry, my internet's been going in and out. Brandon, Amy, welcome. I can't wait to meet you guys in person someday. And thank you for knowing about my journey and my struggles. And you are right. It does change you, and makes you appreciate small things more, which I do now. And I wanted to know, what did Justin Herbert want to know from you when you talked to him?
Well, I called him Shelly, on my way back home. I promise I called Amy first, guys, and then I got, and then I called Justin on my way home. And I just wanted him to hear my voice. I did it with a lot of the guys, but, I just wanted Justin to know that, I wanted him to know a little bit about me. I wanted him to know about my family. Before I got to talking about him being, a quarterback, I wanted him to know about my family and where I've been. And then what I wanted to do, Shelly, was listen to him, and there's a lot going on, but he's back home in Oregon right now with his family. And I know how much his family means to him, and I just wanted to listen for a little bit, on the phone. And I wanted him to hear my energy, kind of maybe see a little bit of the vision that I have for how we want to get this accomplished together. And then, on our way down here today, Amy and I were able to kind of FaceTime him, and I wanted him to see us, before our big day, and I wanted him to know going into a big day that, that he's such a big part of it, and I what you have to do in this league is you have to earn the trust of people like Justin Herbert. And that's why I talk about a sacred mantle of a coach. You have to earn the player's trust. And there's no more there's not a bigger person whose trust we need to earn than Justin.
What is your vision for the offense? What are you looking for in an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, Shelly, I think a teacher, I think a leader, someone that has command. I think, Shelly, I talked to the group in the interview about character and capacity. I want our players to know that our staff are good men and women. I want them to also know that these guys can coach at the highest level in the game, that there is nobody better. And with pro players, you have about like 6 seconds. You have about like 6 seconds, and they know right away whether you can do it or not, And so that's what I'm looking for in an offensive coordinator, somebody with character and capacity, somebody that can lead a staff, that can be a part of our vision for how to play as a team, and that's somebody that can get the best out of our players because of the relationships that he has with them, and I think that in featuring, you're talking about Justin, it's just somebody that can bring out the best in his game, because there's so much that goes into playing that position that has nothing to do with anything else than, that person trusting you. You have to earn the trust of a franchise quarterback. And there's so much in his game that you have to work on every single day, whether it's footwork, fundamentals, the mental side of the game, the physical side of the game, leadership in the locker room, poise in the media, relationships in the community. There's just so many things that come into being a successful franchise quarterback. And you know what you need, Shelly? You need a partner in doing that. Somebody that can help you, through that process and to that process. So, we're underway. We have certainly, work to do, and we're excited to get it done.